What comes to mind when you hear the name Catherine the Great? For many people, it's one thing: a horse. A bizarre, grotesque rumor that the Russian Empress died in a gruesome accident involving a stallion. It is one of the most persistent lies in history. But here is the truth: Catherine the Great died peacefully in her bed at the age of 67 after suffering a stroke. She was the longest reigning female ruler in Russian history, the architect of the Russian Enlightenment, and one of the most powerful women the world has ever seen. Yet we know her for a horse she never met. How did a German princess become the great Empress of Russia? Why do we remember her for a salacious headline instead of her massive territorial conquests and educational reforms? The answer is misogyny, political propaganda, and the same fake news that still haunts powerful women today. This is the story of Catherine the Great, the horse, the throne, and the rumors. Catherine wasn't even Russian when she was born. She was Sophie von Anhalt-Zerbst, a minor Prussian princess born in 1729. At 16, she was shipped to Russia to marry her teenage cousin, the Grand Duke Peter of Holstein. This was a political marriage designed to produce a male heir to the Romanov throne. It was a disaster from the start. Peter was immature, cruel, and despised all things Russian. He had a childish obsession with his German homeland and openly mocked the Orthodox religion. The marriage remained unconsummated for nearly a decade. In 1761, the Empress Elizabeth died, and Peter became Tsar Peter III. Within 6 months, he had alienated the army, the church, and the court. He was a walking disaster. So, Catherine did what she had to do. On June 28, 1762, she rode out of St. Petersburg at the head of an army to arrest her husband. The coup was bloodless, supported by the powerful Orloff brothers. 8 days later, Peter was dead in captivity. Whether she ordered his death is still debated, but one thing is clear: Catherine was now the sole empress of the largest empire on earth. At 33, she took the throne and declared, "I will rule or perish." Now, this is where the rumors began. The biggest spreader of anti-Catherine propaganda was the King of Prussia, Frederick the Great. He couldn't stand the idea of a successful woman on the throne. He hated her because she was successful, more successful than him. He used his spies and printers to spread lies across Europe, hoping to undermine her authority. French pamphleteers adopted this approach too. They used a genre called libertine satire to portray Catherine as an infomaniac. The message was always the same: how could a woman with such unnatural desires possibly rule an empire? At the heart of this smear campaign was the question of her sex life. How could a woman sleep with men and still be the sole ruler of Russia? The answer was, she was deviant. It was all a political attack. Then came the most persistent lie, the horse. According to the story, Catherine died trying to have sex with the stallion. A harness was supposedly constructed to suspend the horse above her, but when it collapsed, the stallion crushed her to death. But this is a complete fiction. There is no historical evidence to support this. Catherine was a 67-year-old woman who died of a stroke in her washroom at Tsarskoye Selo on November 6, 1796. She had actually collapsed from a cerebral hemorrhage. So if the horse myth is a lie, what is the real Catherine? She was the longest reigning female leader of Russia. She ruled for 34 years. During her reign, she expanded Russian territory by 200,000 square miles. She annexed Crimea, partitioned Poland, and transformed Russia into a global superpower. She patronized the arts and sciences. She built the Hermitage Museum and corresponded with Voltaire. She championed the Enlightenment, despite also being an autocrat who kept serfs in bondage. And yes, she had an active sex life. She had many lovers, but she was also a woman of serious political partnerships. Her greatest love was Grigory Potemkin, who was both her lover and her closest statesman. Today, we need to remember the real Catherine. A woman who defeated Frederick the Great on the battlefield and in the propaganda war. A woman whose intellect and strength made her one of history's greatest rulers. The horse myth is nothing more than an 18th century smear campaign, a reminder that powerful women have always been reduced to caricatures. So, the next time someone asks you about Catherine and the horse, you can tell them the truth. She died of a stroke. Her legacy is written in the expansion of an empire. She was Catherine the Great, not the woman who died with a horse.